Hi, and welcome back. This is Daisy Summer by Andrea Cubis. I know it has been a while since I last posted it, and I apologize for the lag. I had helped out with a musical at my school, and wow, that really burned me out, so I just needed a couple weeks to recover. So this painting actually was done before the April acrylic challenge. So I haven't actually sat down and painted yet since the acrylic challenge, but I thought I would publish this video and get it out there because I really like this picture. It's of a little girl picking daisies, and this kind of reminded me of when I was a little girl picking all those wildflowers. Now granted, I generally didn't pick daisies. I was picking dandelions for my poor mother, but my mom appreciated them as though they were daisies. So it really shows you how lucky I was to have such a loving mother. In this picture, we really don't get all that backstory. We get a young girl on a very beautiful sunny day in a field of daisies, and she has found a couple that she considered worthy to pick and put in her basket. For this one, to try and get my portions right, I did grid my canvas and did a quick outline of the girl. I used this water-soluble graphite. It's just like pencil, but the difference is when you paint on it, it just dissolves away with the water of the paint, whereas pencil will stick to the canvas and sometimes show through your lighter colors. I really love this water-soluble graphite. I picked it up at Chiaroscuro in Kingsville, Ontario. She is great at ideas because I went in asking for, I think it was watercolor pencil crayons, and when she asked me what I was using it for, she recommended this, and I have to say it was a great recommendation. I really very much appreciate that. The owner, Sarah Trudell, really knows her products. She obviously has tested them out in different ways, and I thought this pencil but not pencil really worked. Now the downside with outlining that little girl is I had to constantly work around her, and you're going to see a couple spots where I struggled with it. I would have loved to have done the sky where you just do like those full broad strokes across, but I couldn't because her head was in the way. Same thing with the grass. I would have loved to have kept pattern going through the grass, but again, her body was in the way. Even with those difficulties, I thought it turned out okay. Really, the end product, the only spot that I really see where it didn't work for me is actually with her chin, and you'll see what I mean when I get to that. For the first part here, that grassy area, I just did an underlay of a light green with shades of dark kind of blending in, and then I come in on top with some darker highlights to show the shadows of where the grasses were coming up. And at the end of this, you'll see that I come in with light little brush strokes to give some highlights from where the light comes from. This little girl, you'll see, is kind of awkward in her stance because she is bent over in a strange angle, and she's got all that beautiful hair that's catching the sun. One of the things I ran into as a problem is I put so much light grass in behind her head that later when I go to do the hair, it was hard to show off the highlights of the hair in contrast to the grass. So I think next time I would actually have the grass even darker, and that way those bright highlights in her hair would show up even better. This next part, you'll see I'm now starting to work in on her face, and I really struggled with her face. I think a part of it might have been something so simple as when I did the grasses, I left the jawline too far out, and I just couldn't get the angle back on it. I started by simply doing some highlights where I felt the sun was hitting her face, which was kind of awkward because if you look at the picture, the sun is actually right behind her. Yet in the picture, her face picks up some of that sunlight in some odd spaces, like on her eyelid, which I'm not sure where she's getting that light from. It's obviously reflecting off something, because from the sunlight in this picture, that eyelid should have been in darkness, not highlighted. So I went back and forth a bunch of times, like you do with any face especially, to try and even out the highlights and the shadows. As I went through, I worked on getting the nose, focusing on the shadow of the nose, not the outline of the nose. That's where a lot of people fall into problems with doing noses, is we focus on the center of the nose, where what I like to call it the meat of the nose. And unfortunately, that's not actually what you see. That's not how we make a nose. We see a nose through its shadow that it casts. So when you're looking at painting and you're considering on how to do your nose, look at the shadow that's down on the cheek, under the eye first, and you'll find that helps to shape your nose a lot more. As I went through, I then put in the lips, which helped pull back the chin a little bit, but our chin, you can see, is still further out. And I found by having that, it made my little girl look a little older than what I really wanted her to look. So my little girl turned into a old woman dressed in little girl clothes. Okay, maybe not that bad, but that chin really kind of threw off the balance. Then in doing the arm, same idea of highlights and shadows, working with the highlight, pulling in the shadows, going back and forth between them to give that arm a nice three-dimensional look. So then I kind of continued going back around through the arm and the face to create those highlights where the sun was hitting her skin to give her a nice glowing, youthful look. You'll find when kids are out in the sun, their skin just seems to glow a little more than us poor old fogies. Our skin no longer radiates the same way, and I don't know why, we're just not blessed with that youthful skin. So one of the key components to having youthful skin in a picture like this is to make sure that your transitions between highlight and shadow is smooth. Because as the skin gets older, that's when you start to get the more severe lines. And this is one way to make sure that your skin is looking nice and smooth like a young person's skin. Then I started to come in with the highlights on the dress. The dress highlights, you really can't see in this light, but I was mainly just making sure my dress outline was nice and sharp coming through. Later I will come back in with the shadows, but for now I just wanted to get that white in. Now you'll see I'm going back into the skin, and I'm just finishing up that face, and then I'm going to go into that basket. The basket I liked. I thought it worked well with what I wanted to go on in this picture, but at the same time the basket's the wrong size, and you're gonna see what I mean in just a moment. I'm just finishing up that hand, and I think this is, we're almost there. I can almost see it. Finishing up the hand. Oh, there we go. There's the handle for the basket. For a basket, to show her petite size, if I had gone with a larger basket, it would have shown better how small and petite this girl was. By having such a small basket, it actually went with the chin of making her look older, and that really wasn't my intention. I wanted her to look petite and small. Well, I guess petite and small are the same word, just different languages, right? But I wanted her to be small and youthful, and most importantly, innocent looking. Here you'll see now, I'm starting to come in with those shadows on the dress to show the creases just a little bit more, and it helps us see that the darkness in the creases actually helps us see the purity and the whiteness of the highlights. So it really shows that somehow this little girl got to the middle of a field in a perfectly white dress. So obviously this little girl was not me, because there's no way I could make it that far into a field in a white dress and still have it be white by this point. because you'll see when we get into painting the daisies that she picks quite a few daisies. And I can tell you, if I picked that many daisies, there'd be mud all over that dress. Next, I went up into the hat. The hat is also white, but it's not as pure white as the dress. It's one of those straw bleached hats. They're so comfortable. I have to admit, I love wearing them in the summertime. So I started by working in the shadows of the hat and then trying to get some of the patterning with the holes. That's one of the hard parts of painting with these hats is they got all those tiny little holes. And let's be honest, who wants to paint every single little hole? But it's the only way to really make those kind of hats look great in this kind of painting. Then I went in on the hair. Poor girl has to have hair, right? And I mean, that was one of the beautiful parts of that picture is that her hair just glowed with the sunshine. To show the glow though, you first need to start with, again, the shadow, right? That contrast idea. So I started with quite a dark brown, then I layered in a level of yellow on top, and then I started in with these white highlights. I did struggle. I was trying so hard to cover up the chin mistake, and I ended up with a little more hair coming out front than probably this poor girl would normally have, but she's blessed with a good head of hair. There you go. There she is, smelling her flowers, her beautiful daisies. This is Daisy Summer by Andrea Cubis. Thank you for watching, and I hope you come back for another video.